regular meeting of the Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are representatives of the city's planning department, the city attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Workman Associates. If you wish to address the planning commission, please come forward when recognized and provide your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the planning commission, not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, Blackberries, PDAs, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting, please either be placed in silent mode or be turned off. Ms. Sarnicki, the roll call, please.
Mrs. Cruz?
Here.
Mr. Edmonds?
Here.
Mr. Gottlieb?
Here.
Mr. Hudson?
Here.
Mr. Krant?
Here.
Mr. Sanzika?
Here.
Mr. Shepke?
Here.
Mr. Stratt?
Here.
Mr. Tagle?
Agenda item number 2 is the approval of the agenda for the minutes of the October 28th, 2014 special study meeting. Mr. Sabato?
Could we amend the agenda to add item 5A, 2015 Planning Commission meeting dates?
Oh, yeah, I guess I thought that's where we were at. No, okay. Yeah, I don't see why not. Let's make it number 5A maybe or something.
You mean the motion to,
Yes, please.
so moved, we amend the agenda?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Stratt.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Gottlieb?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Mr. Sanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Next is the minutes of the October 28th, 2014 special study meeting. Is there any comments or a resolution to approve?
Hearing no comments, I'll move to approve.
Thank you. Mr. Krant?
Second.
And seconded to Mr. Gottlieb.
Mr. Gottlieb?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Mr. Sanzika?
Yes.
Mr. Shepke?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes. Number 4 is public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to an item that is not on the agenda? Yes, would you please go to the microphone over there and state your name? Did you sign in, sir?
Yes, I did.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. My name is Joel Pumphrey, and I've lived for 20 years at 6616 Glendale Drive. And you've all seen me 6 months ago when we were fighting Trowbridge's building of Kimberly Court behind several of our homes and on Benjamin. And there wasn't enough land, and it went on and on. I'm here to tell you I need your help. Things have gotten really, really bad. And if I might, and I'll give this one going that way, and I'll give one down here to go this way. Pictures and 8x10 glosses and all that good stuff. As you remember, and I have to write this down because I get nervous. As you remember, the builders, Trowbridge, promised to keep a 35-foot greenbelt between our properties and the street of homes they wanted to build. The original paperwork, and it's in there, at the letter, the original letter sent to the homeowners stating that there would be 45 feet, when in reality it became 35 feet back there because there wasn't enough room. And as you can see from the pictures, the builder's promises have not been kept. The first picture was what it looked like from my patio until Tuesday, October 7th, when I came home to find a 30-foot wide hole through the trees, 30-foot wide, 35 feet deep, and everything above, and there's 50-foot trees that were demolished. The other pictures show the same view as now. When you see the pictures, you'd be shocked. I immediately went to the Troy Building Department, talked to them. They in turn said they would turn everything over to the engineering department, who was now in charge of the project. The engineering department came out to look, and they said they couldn't believe what the builder did either, and that the builder could have hooked up there is a sewer at one corner of my property where this is at. The engineering department came out to look and said they couldn't believe what the builder did either, and the builder could have hooked up the sewer without so much damage. They blew this 30-foot hole to hook up this little sewer that's about a foot wide. I then called the builder, who said he would come out and look also. Then the blame game began. The builder's saying that the engineering department made them hook up to the sewer at the end of my property. However, and this is a quote, he also said that he was upset at the way his subcontractor, this is his wording, nuked the area. The builder also said that the sewer hookup would be complete in November, and there is a fence that actually what nobody really knew about because it's covered with grapevines and everything. There's a fence that was built when the subdivision was built in 1979 that separated about 600 feet of my subdivision with the woods that had come down. Well, when he took out this 30-foot stretch, made this 30-foot hole, the fence got killed too, along with the sprinkler head of mine and all this. The builders, okay, he said he would replace the fence as soon as they hooked up the sewer system. He would replace his 30 feet of fence, and he would put 3 12-foot evergreens in. Now this isn't very, 12 feet isn't very big. 3 evergreens in to replace 50-foot trees, the shrubs, the brushes, and about 20 feet of grapevines heading up the side. He was going to place it with that. As of the day, the middle of November, nothing has been done. No sewer hookup, no fences, no trees. As a matter of fact, there has been no work whatsoever done in the site in the last week. I'm in the middle. My yard's a mess. The builder said he would take care of it. You know, do we believe him? I want my fence back, my trees back, and it is a mess, and I don't know where to go from now. So I'm here asking you maybe for looking into this. There were other comments made by the building department, which I won't say because you don't want to hear it.
Sir, I'm going to ask Mr. Sabina to address this because I don't think you're in front of the correct body to address this.
I probably not, and I didn't know where to go, but you guys approved it, and so
We don't enforce the action after it's been approved. It's administration and engineering that get involved.
yeah, and engineering does know, and like I said, like nothing's been. It was like they were given a free rein, and now, gentlemen, ladies, next door to me last week, because they have disturbed so much of this woods in the back, and even the 35 feet they were going to keep, the man next door who just moved in 6 months ago, he had a 50-foot tree 2 weeks ago come landing in his backyard that came from where they have busted up the root system so bad of trees, it came over into, and it's still laying there. When I did call the engineering department, they said that previous to my call, the other side of the property in Benjamin, they had encroached in there also, and there was a problem at that end. But as you can see from the pictures, there's a huge hole, and it just, it's not good.
Mr. Sabina.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. That bothers me, and I thank you for coming before us this evening and informing us of what's going on there. The developer has an approved site plan that they're obligated to meet. It basically serves as a contract, and when they show on the site plan that they're to preserve trees, or they're to make other improvements, or they're to preserve other features, they're obligated by that contract, site plan approval, to do so. You are correct regarding the northern property line. This is the first time hearing about your issue, but we'll look into it. But regarding the northern property line, you're absolutely correct, Mr. Chairman. there's a line of trees and shrubs that were to be not touched. And when Trowbridge sent the crew out there to start clearing land for the development, the first thing they did was start to cut trees and shrubs down in the no-cut zone. Thankfully, one of the neighbors to the north of that contacted us right away. I was able to send one of our code enforcement people out there immediately. They ceased operations, and then Trowbridge gave us a plan for replanting in that area, and they're actually going to get some probably higher quality trees and probably a little bit more dense than what was proposed to remain. So I think it's going to work out in that instance. This is a different situation. Again, this is the first that I'm hearing about it. So what I would like you to do is if you could leave with me your contact information so that we can easily get a hold of you. I'd like to send one of my guys out, one of my code enforcement people out there to investigate, to compare what's been done to the site plan, and then so that we can get involved and we can inform Trowbridge of what the expectations are to bring the site into compliance with what was approved
I really
and to
appreciate
move
that.
forward.
Because my house is turned, and from my patio, my door wall, my kitchen window, there's only about 50 feet to that fence line. And
Mhm.
35 feet sounds like a lot, but it isn't. And those homes are gonna be right at that 35-foot
Yes.
mark. And this hole has blown in. I mean, literally, you could walk into my kitchen if I had the door wall open from that spot. And it's horrendous.
Do
Yes,
you-
you can see the pictures, it's gone.
You handed out some information. Can I keep these?
Yes, please,
Okay.
and I tell you what, this is, and this is kind of dumb to give you, but these were my notes.
Yes, that's
And
great.
it just said,
So I've got your contact information, so I'm gonna have either myself, Mr. Pumphrey, or one of my field inspectors will be in
I
contact.
really
And we'll
appreciate that.
we'll get to the bottom of this and we'll assist you, okay?
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
I
Thanks,
appreciate it.
Thanks for doing
Thank
this.
you.
Next is the item number 5, master plan update on demographics. Is that going to be you, Brent?
Are you doing the meeting schedule first?
It's after.
It's after. It's going to be, sorry.
We're gonna,
Okay.
Ben put together the PowerPoint, but we'll kind of tag team it. Since I have the facial hair of a pro wrestler, we'll tag team it.
Oh, jeez. You're getting into it, really.
So thank you, good evening. This title's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not just changing demographics, it's also kind of changing and evolving preferences. So what was sent in your packet on Friday was very draft, and I almost use the term very drafty. Brent and I actually had a conversation whether or not we were going to share this with the Planning Commission yet. And the point is this will evolve as we're kind of working through the master plan, especially when we go out and meet with some other groups about how we're going to address some of these issues. But we really want to get the Planning Commission's input from the very beginning on where we're going with this. So there's 3 important things to think about for demographics in Troy. Troy is aging, Troy is diversifying, and there are some changing preferences, and I'll go into each one. But these are not unique to Troy, they're not unique to Michigan, and really this is what we're seeing all over the country. So there will be a 71% increase in senior citizens, those are 65 and older, just in Troy in the next 30 years. The largest segment of that is going to be what they're calling the super seniors. Those are those that are 85 years of age or older, and there's going to be a 116% increase in just that age cohort alone. That's about 7,000, 8,000 people just in Troy alone. If you'll see in 2000, the blue graph is those are under 18, and the red bars are those are 65 and older. In 2000, there were about approximately 3 times as many people under 18 as there were those are 65 and older. In 2010, we started to be about twice as many people under 18 to 65 and older. But it's changing rapidly. By 2040, there will be an equal amount of people 65 and older as equal to 18. So by 2040, it'll be the first time in Troy's history that there will be more seniors than people of the age of 18 or younger. that has some huge and dramatic effects on the city. It's the first time, not only in Troy's history, this is projected out across the United States, it's the first time in world's history that any population will have more seniors, 65 or older, than they will have a population under 18. So it's going to be a problem, it's going to be an issue that we're all going to be facing in the future. So not only are we getting older, but our lifestyles, our housing choices, our households are changing. From 1960 to projected out to 2014, households without children are changing significantly. In 1960, about 50% of the households had children and 50 did not. In 2010, it dropped down to 30%, and in 2040, it's going to drop down even lower than that. And this is due to really three factors. One is we have an older population, so obviously they're going to have less children living at home. We have a smaller population in child rearing age, so we're missing that middle gap of people. Basically, the baby boomers didn't have enough children to support their own population. And then thirdly, people are waiting longer to have children. Many people had children in their 20s and young 20s. Now we're waiting until we're 30s and sometimes 40s to have children. So there's just less children being born. In addition, there are many people that are living alone now that weren't living alone before. Since 1940 to 2010, in 50 years, the number of people living alone has more than quadrupled in terms of total numbers. It's now 25% of the population in the state of Michigan is living by themselves, whether that's a single person that's young, or an elderly or widow, or even someone in their middle age. 25% of the population is living by themselves. Race is changing in Troy too. From 2010 to 2010, the white demographic population dropped by 8%. However, the Asian population increased by almost 6%, and there were smaller increases in the African American Black population as well as the multiracial. So we're getting diversified. We're changing our culture, and primarily the Asian population is very prevalent in Southeast Michigan. You have other minorities in other parts of the country, but in Southeast Michigan, we're primarily getting the Asian population. These are a lot of the Middle Eastern population falls under the Asian population for the according to the census. Our preferences are changing. The millennials, I fall into the very later end of the millennials. I'm kind of right on the board with the millennials. It's people that are born in 1981 to 2000. Our preferences where we want to live are changing significantly. We want to live in a traditional neighborhood close to the downtown, or we want to live in the urban core itself. However, what was very interesting in the studies, and this was done from the 2011 Community Preference Survey. It's done by the census. They do it every couple of years to just get preferences on living situations in the United States. But what was interesting was the national research also showed that there was a huge demand in urban living, in downtown living, for they have 6 generations that are basically in the American population right now. And 3 of the 6 really want to live in urban environments, and that's the millennials, that's the younger population. Can you see my red dot? The silent generation, that's the people that are just below the greatest generation. It's the people that were born, I have the numbers here, 1925 to 1945. And the baby boomers. Most of us are in either the baby boomers or the silent generation. So you folks, your generation wants to live in more of an urban environment than any other time in history. So I wish Mr. Tagle was here, you and I want the same thing. We're not that different. My family wants to live in an urban core area in a downtown neighborhood, and so does Mr. Tagle. I'll give you a little example. My family, we moved from Chicago about 3 years ago. And my wife's from New Orleans. She lived in the middle of the city. She moved to Philadelphia when she was in grad school, lived in the city, moved to Chicago, lived in the city, always lived in the city. She said, I'll move to Michigan, that's fine. But she said, I want to live as urban as possible. So we chose, we knew we wanted a family, et cetera. So we chose a neighborhood in Ann Arbor that is a 5-minute walk from campus and a 10-minute walk from downtown. And we can still walk to our neighborhood schools, et cetera. So while we're not in the urban core, we're close enough that we fit into that statistic where we want to live close to a downtown and walkable environments. So this is a national survey. This is 47%. This is not by generation. 47% of the population wants to live in a city or suburban neighborhood with a mix of houses, shops, and businesses. 47% doesn't sound like a huge number, but it's much, much, much higher than they've ever tracked in previous surveys. 88% of those respondents said that the neighborhood where they live is more important than the size of their house. So they're starting to not live in those bigger houses out in the suburbs. They're starting to move in smaller houses closer to the urban cores. And the 3 top community characteristics that people desired were public schools, sidewalks, and places to walk. Now, this is national. It's not Michigan, but it just gives you a kind of changing shift in culture here. So these demographic changes have huge impacts on our local government. They change everything from labor markets to the housing markets to social services to finance and city budgets, infrastructure, land use, schools, school placement, school population, etc. So the question for Troy is, how do we react to this? This is not intended to scare anyone or as a threat of anything. But one of the things that I heard recently is that we need to stop planning like we're dealing with 1960 demographics. We need to start thinking and reacting to what the current demographics and trends are. So we are facing changes in Troy that we need to evolve with, and there's really 3 priorities that we've identified, and we're looking for the Planning Commission to kind of help us flesh some of these out. The first one is that we need to provide a variety of housing options. The second is that we need to maintain a high quality of life, and third is that we need to continue to assess city services based on these changing demographics and I would say preferences. So I'll go into a little more on each one. So the first one, simply stated, I can't say this any clear. Troy's housing stock is not representative of our population now and not representative of what our population is projected to be in the next 30 years. 72% of our current housing stock is single family detached. These are large lots, large neighborhoods for the most part, large houses and large lots. 20% are multi-unit apartment, 6% condo, 1% mobile home, and 1% duplex. This number, this 20%, 6% is changing slightly. We're getting to see more of this type of housing unit. I think the last 2 big projects we looked at, one was the apartment building on Amber, and the one we got a pre-development meeting with the apartment building on Maple. So those are 2 large projects that kind of fit into the changing housing type. So we're starting to see changes.
And to piggyback on that, Ben, the 72%, if you broke that down in terms of size, 1,000 square feet or less, 1,001 to, if we broke that out, you would find we're really on the spectrum is really on the larger size homes, not the smaller ones. We do have smaller homes, but significantly
Right.
less, smaller proportion than larger ones.
So just keep in mind the 72% as I move along here. So right now, based on 2010 census, 30 to 32% of home purchases are made by couples. I should have added another couple, a senior couple, because seniors are purchasing homes. But 30 to 30% of home purchases are made by couples. 22 to 24% are made by single women, and this is the highest number of single women that have been in the home purchasing market in United States history. And 75% of households will be without children by 2040.
That's a sad looking picture.
Yeah.
That's awful wallpaper.
Yeah. Is that what that is? Is that wallpaper? I like the headboard. There's the elephant in the room that we are just starting to talk about, and that's the great senior sell-off. And what that is that 35% seniors, and that's 65 or older, will have trouble selling their house in the next 5 years. There are 20 million houses that they're projected to be sold by seniors in the next 5 years, and they project that 35% or 7 million of those houses will have trouble selling. And trouble selling means they'll be on the market for more than a year. And the other thing is when seniors move, they don't necessarily buy. Most of the time, they don't buy another house or a condo. They rent, and so the apartment market is going to be growing as well. So all that added up, cumulative to the total of the projected 2040 population, 56% are in that non-single family demographic, but our housing stock right now is 72% caters to single family, or is single family. So there's obviously a gap in terms of options. Now, This 56% is not scientific at all. There are fudge rooms, but the point of this all is that there is a huge gap right now in housing options, and potentially in the next 30 years, we are going to have a huge glut of single-family residential in Troy. So Troy has lots of seniors and lots of single-family homes. So how do we deal with this? I think all of us recognize that the strength of Troy is our single-family housing stock. And we're not saying that that should change in the next 30 years. And we do project that a majority of residents that move to Troy will live in single-family homes, but we need options. There has to be more housing options out there. Our position really is we have enough of this. We've got plenty of this, probably maybe more than enough of this. We just don't have enough of this. And what we mean by this is they talk about this kind of missing middle section, and this was done by an architect, drawing done by an architect. And basically, what they're saying is that we've got plenty of single unit detached, plenty of mid-rise, which, Brent, would you say we have enough of that in Troy? Maybe, maybe not.
Probably not,
But we're missing this middle part. We're missing the smaller single-family homes. We're missing the duplexes. We're missing the townhome development. We're missing the live-work. Because these really attract those that are going to be buying homes in the next 30 years. The seniors, the young professionals, and the families. So the first strategy is we need to maintain a housing balance that reflects demographics. Basically, there needs to be consistency between what the public wants and what we are able to provide. We need to encourage the middle type housing. Brett and I strive to do this. Every meeting we have is to educate the development community regarding the market demand. We get pushback every time we try to talk about an alternative housing option to any developer because they simply want to do what they know how to do and they want to build what they know how to build and they don't look at other housing options. We need to continue to review the zoning ordinance to make sure that we allow a wide range of housing options and potentially maybe need to look at the zoning ordinance in terms of disincentivizing single family in some places. And lastly, we need to keep pushing for residential and mixed use development. I know we talk about it, I know it's really hard to do, but we need to continue to keep doing this.
Ben?
Yes?
You know, what I don't quite understand, since developers are driven by the profit motive, and if, after you've pointed this out, that is, I don't understand, at some point, they're gonna be able to not market those kind of units.
Right.
But evidently, they're still able to now, and so I don't understand what the logic is, part of the developer to not consider other types. I know, you know, we all talk about the cookie cutter type of developments, you know, and, lack of creativity and all that, but it doesn't matter, that they're still marketing those units, somebody's buying them. And maybe the lesser desirable units are the ones that are gonna fall by the wayside or not ever be sold.
it's a very hot market right now. Troy's doing very well. We're fairly steady. I mean,
Yeah.
you're all at the meetings. We're getting fairly steady applications in terms of site condominiums. We're not getting the 75, 100 lot site condos and subdivisions like we were 25, 30 years ago. We're getting 6 or 12 or 10 unit, you know, so it's steady, but it's not overwhelming. And those homes are basically sold the second they're on the market. And they're 3,500, 5,000 square foot homes. And they're selling.
I mean, this is like turning around a battleship in a lot of ways. I mean, we've had, I'm far from an expert on housing policy, but since World War II, we've had 60 years of housing policy pushing single-family residential, and we're starting to rethink that.
How does Ann Arbor compare to Detroit in that respect? I know they have a lot of different stuff.
We do. I mean, we have a much younger population too because of the students, and we have more students that stick around after they graduate. And I'll get to that here in a second. But we have lots more students that stick around after they graduate and stay in Ann Arbor. But there's much more variety. And there's, you know, Ann Arbor has a downtown too. It has a downtown and it has a neighborhood that surrounds the downtown. And Troy doesn't have that right now.
Right.
So I shared an email with Planning Commission This is from, it's sent from two women who attended the Big Beaver Symposium about a month ago. And this is a conversation that we have all the time. And this is what Ben alluded to, and I think I've mentioned it. It's people who live, they've worked a long time and lived a long time in Troy. They've raised their children in Troy. Their children have now left home. They've got large single-family home they no longer want to maintain. They want to downsize, but they want to stay in Troy. And a lot of them want, I'm also hearing they want detached. But you can design and construct attached homes that still are very quiet and have, you know, you can do a lot with sound reduction. But their concern is they're gonna have to leave Troy, downsize. I hear this constantly at the city. And these are the conversations that Ben and I have with the development community. You've got to start paying attention to the trends of what's going on. We want people to stay in Troy. We don't want them going to Warren or Sterling Heights or Birmingham or wherever. We want them to stay in Troy. So that's one of the major messages of this evening is how do we deal with this? What do we do with this issue to really, and Ben, I think Ben suggested maybe we incentivize it. We make it, you know, how do you get someone to listen to you? You make it an economic argument. That's one way of doing it. That's a very effective way of doing it. I don't have the answer sitting here how to do this, but it's a thought. If you make this, I'm hearing it's an economic argument for why they can't do it. Well, let's make it an economic argument for incentivizing it. And some of these things, like the bottom point there, encouraging residential and mixed-use developments. A lot of you who've been involved in negotiating a couple of PUDs, you know the challenge that we have when they want to do one story, just one story retail, and we say, go higher. You're on Big Beaver, there's no single-family residential nearby, go higher. They don't want to go higher, they say, I'm a retail guy, I don't do residential. Or
Right.
it's too hard to finance. Yes.
That's a point I've seen over the past couple of years, especially in Big Beaver, where we say, we should hold out, make them go that second story. But you know what the pressure is to, hey, we gotta fill that spot, and the town needs the retail or the economy, and we cave. Maybe we gotta do a little tougher.
Well, what kind of incentive could we give them to build higher? What are some of these?
Yeah, we've got some amenities that we can dangle out there for permission to go higher, but that didn't seem to be the problem. They just didn't want to do it. They said, well, we don't think we can make money, done.
Well, part of the issue right now is that because we're coming out of the lowest, you know, of the recession. The land costs right now in Big Beaver are so cheap compared to what they've been historically that they can make a profit by doing one story. So why take the risk by doing multiple story when they can do one story and make a killing at it? So I think, you know, as the economy keeps picking up in 4 or 5 years, we're going to start seeing that it's not profitable to do one story anymore on Big Beaver. So it's going to take a couple of years to get there.
You know, we haven't got many patches on Big Beaver or some of these main highways. We're pretty well built up, and maybe you got to start considering demolishing.
Mhm.
You can't force somebody to do that, but
That's where the market comes into play. So the success along Big Beaver is gonna breed hopefully more success, increased land values. That's gonna require that there's more density and more intensity on the parcel. But that's not gonna happen tomorrow. That's a,
I mean,
That's
we've
a
zoned it
process.
for density too, but it just doesn't seem to
right.
happen.
Bill, did you have one?
Well, I think it's, any developer wants density. I mean, the more units he can put per acre, you know, the more money he's gonna make, and the more profit he's gonna make, and I think we heard that at that one public hearing, the last winter, when they talked about having more, multiple unit in zoning behind the commercial zoning along Rochester Road, for example. And, you know, I don't know if I'm in favor of that, but I see like, the Livernois site, or the Big Beaver site down by the Bella submarine shop, or Robinson Brothers, the first phase is all sold out. I was really surprised when I saw that, and they're building their last phase now, and it looks like it's going great guns. So, you know, the developers are, their incentives are profit, and the more way they make more profits, they have less infrastructure and more buildings, and having more units per acre. And that's really what their incentive would be.
And it is a copycat world, especially with developers. And it's almost like we need a developer to take a risk. What we're hearing anyways is a risk, and do mixed use, and be successful. And then once that happens, you know, that would hopefully spearhead more.
See, the big thing that I think in terms of the Big Beaver corridor, I think we're really trying to stretch 5 miles. And I think that really we should be focusing in on nodes within that 5-mile stretch and see if we can even make something happen with the city, because we're talking form-based code, we're trying to do that. We're losing the amenities of the place destination, the park benches, the trees, the landscaping, the lighting. We have to create a little node so that that would be a spark for other nodes to actually exist, in my opinion. I think the city has to take a forward position and say, okay, we're gonna make this a showplace, just like they did in Auburn Hills.
Right.
You've got to do something small and create that node that we keep talking about. And I think that also with the Big Beaver corridor study with the parking, the parallel parking that they had, those are little nodes that we really should have. And I think that, you know, going along with that, then you'll maybe see some high rises. If you have a point of destination, you create a little village within that 5-mile stretch. It's not 5 miles, but maybe 10. You know, but that's a stupid architect talking.
No, and
That's my thought.
the city hosted this Big Beaver Symposium, which some of the planning commissioners participated in, where that concept came up, and we're looking at that, and looking at building up nodes more on the pedestrian level, but the amenities you're talking about, the landscaping, the benches, the lighting, all that plays into all that.
Yeah, that's a very important element.
Yep.
It's just not form-based code.
Right.
I mean, you did your walk, and you did your walk. I remember that. You told me about the walk that you all did, and you couldn't even hear each other.
It was dangerous.
How are you gonna have people walking down there?
Right.
And no pedestrian scale lighting. It's all,
Yeah, but there was some lighting there. You said that one little
Oh, yeah.
that little strip center.
Right.
Really neat.
That
It really
crowd.
focuses.
So here we're hearing a goal, so one of the challenges, one of the things lacking is housing options, and a mix of residential and residential mixed use on Big Beaver would actually achieve 2 important goals. One is to provide more housing options for the millennials and retirees, et cetera, baby boomers, et cetera. And the other is to provide more people and more residents and more people that live on Big Beaver to shop and to go to restaurants and bars and whatnot along Big Beaver, make it more of an active place, and here's a word I hate, synergy. You know, making it more of a 24-hour place. So it's actually a goal that hits on a lot of different areas.
Right, right. And the younger people are the key thing that you're talking about.
Right.
Now you have to design for them as well.
We're getting there.
Not what we like necessarily, but what they would like.
No, but the point I was trying to make is what you want is not that far off from what they want.
Right.
The numbers actually even up pretty closely, because you're gonna be leaving your house soon. You know, I mean, eventually some of you will be leaving your house and you're gonna move somewhere, and the numbers say that most of you want to move somewhere you can walk to the store, you can walk to the gym, wherever you go. And right now in Troy, there's just not that many options for that market to meet that.
or ride a shuttle bus. You know, that's the other thing. I just spent 4 days in Grand Rapids last week. What a magnificent city that is in terms of transportation. They had a bus line called Dash, you know, runs every 10, 12 minutes, you know, around the city. And so you really don't have to drive every place you think you might want to go. I think, you know, that's part of the talk in the Big Beaver Symposium too, that, you know, we need to consider, or maybe incentivizing something like that, a local shuttle system.
Well, everything is a priority. So you have to prioritize what you're gonna do first and what you're gonna focus on. But, you know, like California, you go to the Bay Area or San Francisco, they have little nodes all over the place. They have mixed use,
Right.
You know, that's what we're trying to create, and that's what's drawing everybody there.
Gordon?
Yes, you know, I like the idea of the nodes and other things like that, but we've had several friends that have had these big houses in Troy that the builders had no trouble selling, and now they're trying to sell, and they're having a hard time, because they want a little ranch. They want to stay in Troy, and they can't because they're going to Sterling Heights, because you can't buy a ranch in Troy for less than the mid $300,000, and there are very, very few subdivisions that will even offer them. And as you get older, you can't manipulate stairs, you don't entertain as much as you used to when you're younger. There's so many aspects of your life that change. Maybe you can't afford the massive heating costs for this big house anymore, or as you want to use extra money to travel or do other things. And I think that's the reason people are renting, but a lot of people would stay in the city, and I'm talking people my age or maybe a little bit older, if they could find something where they didn't have to climb stairs. And many times, apartments are the only alternative they have, but they would rather be here. And it's a shame, it really is a shame.
I totally agree with you, Gordon, and even if it was, it's not just ranches. In my case, I wouldn't mind at all buying a two-story housing unit if it had a first floor master on it. So we did, you know. so
That's
you
an
could-
option too, yeah,
Right.
definitely.
And the builders are just not doing it. All
Well,
the
they're
new
not.
developments,
They're
there's no
not.
first floor masters.
Because they don't have to sell these houses, right now, they're having no trouble selling them. But when the people that move in there have to resell it, they're the ones that are gonna get burnt, not the builder, cause he's made his money, he's gone. He's going on to build another one.
You know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Maybe too late, we're pretty well developed, but I'm thinking, why can't we put a requirement in our building code or our zoning code which requires any new one-story or any new residential building to mandate a bedroom downstairs and a full bath downstairs?
You guys know of any other cities that have done that?
Nope.
Well, we could be the leader.
It's an I mean,
They're gonna build these monsters, they'll find room for a master bedroom downstairs, and I think it'll sell very quickly.
I think the position I feel comfortable taking, is that I'm not sure we want to dictate the housing market. We want to make sure there's enough options to provide for a multitude of
Why not dictate?
needs.
I mean, we aren't gonna have that many new homes built here in Troy.
Mm-hmm.
What's wrong? I mean, they require a full bath in a home, why not just take, okay, put it downstairs? Have one sleeping quarter downstairs.
What about the cluster option, cluster homes, you know, ranches and stuff like that? I mean, it's profitable, and a lot of people, I was impressed with the amount of single people, whether they're younger or older, and they want something they can maintain and it isn't gonna smother them. They can go out and have another life besides being a homeowner. And I think that there's probably areas in Troy where the cluster option, we can create these single-story homes and maybe by making the density a little bit more, and you know, it might. Right now, you just can't find them, and it's a shame because right now it's not affecting the builders yet, but the next downturn is going to.
Well, and there's the zoning code to deal with, but there's also all other sorts of other city codes that we need to respond to this. For example, the engineering code requires a public street at 24 feet in width. Well, that takes up a lot of room, so you can't get as much density.
28.
28 feet, I'm sorry. There's stormwater management requirements that require you to so, part of this is gonna be it's gonna be a multifaceted approach where we're gonna have to look at a number of city codes and try to find ways that we could streamline all of them together to allow for this type of example you're talking about too.
But if you build,
Go ahead. Mine's not that important. Go ahead, John.
no, you go ahead.
My only point was, I think we're missing the point. I mean, we really need to bring young people to Troy.
That's gonna be the next point.
Good, I'm sorry. I think the Michigan Municipal League had a real good, I went to a presentation a year or two ago that talk about the Thousand Nights.
I,
Am I
why
taking-
don't you talk right after I'm done
the
here?
remote.
Yeah, you would. I'll give it a second.
Okay, let him make his point.
Well, I think we need to bring young people back to Troy,
Yeah.
and to fill that void,
Yeah.
to allow
Yeah.
them to buy the housing, and start with young families, to move up into the bigger homes. And it's, you're not gonna do it unless you have entertainment, you provide for an incentive for them to be in this area. And I
So
think
you're taking totally the next half of my presentation here.
Stealing the thunder.
That's okay.
I didn't read it, so.
So the other, I'll
We're
finish.
still paying them the same rate.
I'll finish the housing up real quickly. So, also in the 2000 census, 90% of the people, when they were interviewed, wanted to stay in their home. But the reason they weren't able to, obviously, was universal design. We kind of talked about universal design, first floor master bedrooms, single story in some case. So how can Troy encourage universal design? When Brent and I meet with developers, this is something we need to talk to them about early on in the phase, is encouraging universal design. We need to recognize universal design branding and incorporate universal design into any future city building and retrofit. So universal design is for both residential and commercial. There's commercial and universal design too. This is not only just ADA compliance, but it's also allowing people multiple ages and disabilities to use a space. Okay, now Phil, we're getting into your part, and if I miss anything, I want you to jump in here. So preferences are changing. Active seniors, which are 9% in Troy, they're a growing segment. They're the segment that's going to start living in the senior assisted living. They're still active, but they have different needs and social services than others. The young baby boomers, those are set to retire or have just started retiring. They are the largest growing segment in Troy, and they still want to stay active, stay involved. But they're seeking more opportunities for walkability. They want biking opportunities. They want pedestrian opportunities. A lot of them are now entrepreneurs. They've retired. They have enough money. They can start a second career, and so their second career they're starting is an entrepreneurial endeavor. Generation Y, that is the millennials kind of fall in the Generation Y. That's the people that are graduating from college or in their young to mid 20s. That's right now only 11% in Troy. That's pretty low as compared to a lot of surrounding communities. These are going to be these are the entrepreneurs. These are the folks that are going to create the businesses and create the jobs. And lastly, the minority population right now in Troy is 25%, and that's only increasing. The desire for housing for them still is kind of the single family. They still are gearing towards the single family, especially large homes in the single family. But their community relation is really tied to the school district and the schools that they attend. So they're a little bit different than what these other preferences are. But we're getting to Phil's point here is that we need to evolve in terms of quality of life. And quality of life is basically what makes Troy great. People move to Troy because of the quality of life. So we need to keep building on the quality of life and create a great place. And this is need to attract and retain talent. Most of the workers that we're trying to attract are what they call the knowledge workers. These are the people that are in the tech industry, the engineering industries, the people that use their mind to for services, and they're mobile. They can live in Troy, they can live in Royal Oak, they can live in California, really. So what is special about Troy to bring these people to have them live here? Because they're the ones who are going to eventually buy your home from you when you decide to move somewhere else. And these people are attracted to quality places. They want to live in they want to live in a place where they can walk to a Granite City on a Thursday night and have a drink after work. And we don't have enough of these kind of places. So what they need, they're looking for 4 things. They're looking for an active and dynamic living environment with lots of fun. This is recreation, arts, and social. There's a thing called, and Phil brought up this thing called 1,000 nights. Basically what it says is that to be a dynamic community, you need to provide 1,000 nights of fun. And basically what that says is that if the average person that's a millennial goes out twice a week over 50 weeks of a year, times that by 10 years, that's 1,000 nights. So you need to provide 1,000 nights worth of activities to really attract a younger generation, millennials. Do we have 1,000 nights of fun or activities in Troy? I don't know. They want amenities. They want pedestrian opportunities, biking opportunities, parks, outdoor space, sporting opportunities. They want diverse lifestyle choice. They want transportation options, which we don't have any in Troy. They want housing options and they want a density range. They want the choice to live in the mid-range, the high rise, but they also want to be able to buy a single-family home when they're ready when they're in that demographic, when they're ready to have a single-family home. And lastly, they want business and entrepreneurial opportunities. They want a creative culture, they want a risk-taking culture, and then lastly, they want a place where they can market for innovation.
So before you change the slide, I could argue that the baby boom population wants essentially the same thing,
Yep, that's the point.
right? Active, dynamic living environment, lots of fun, amenities, diverse lifestyle choices. It's the
So-
same, it's the same,
Just at a different pace.
How many?
Sure.
How many of you have children that are graduating from college? All right. How many of them move back to Troy? One. Where did the other people move to? Other kids?
North Carolina.
Seattle,
Texas.
Texas.
San
I got one
Francisco.
going to Texas next week.
San Francisco, Ann Arbor.
So why did when they decided to move there, not move back to Troy? What was the reasoning? They get
Jobs.
Jobs.
lifestyle,
Lifestyle.
Both.
Jobs and lifestyle.
Warmer climate.
And these people, the knowledge workers, they tend to move to a place and then they create the jobs.
Right.
So like I'm I guess I'm a knowledge worker in some respect, but I moved to Chicago and I graduated college because I didn't have a job. I just moved to Chicago because I wanted to be in a cool place to live when I was 22 years old.
My kids did too.
Yeah.
They did.
Well, that's all kids that graduate
Sure.
from around here, go to Chicago or sometimes maybe New York, but not as many.
So I think we will never be Chicago. Obviously, we will never be Chicago. We won't have the advantages that Chicago has, but we need to present an option for those who do want more things to do and do want the quality of life and are 22 and want to move back to Troy.
Yeah, hell, 22, how about me?
And you too.
I'd like to move to San Francisco. I would if I could, if I didn't have all the anchors here. That's where, it's a lot of activity. That's what I want too.
Big house to
Up the
sell.
anchor overboard.
Big house, right? Yeah.
So before you go on though, Ben,
Yeah.
what prompted your move to Chicago? You mentioned that you wanted a fun place, but
Well, actually, I moved for a girl, and that didn't work out.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, that didn't work out. No, I was
You
20.
didn't have a mustache.
Yeah, mustache.
But that's valid.
I was 22. 10 of my friends from my graduating class in college, we all just said, let's just move to Chicago.
so was it
Half
Lincoln
of my
Park or
job.
Streeterville?
It was Lincoln Park, and then I eventually moved north, as I got older, and
Sure.
I lived there for 10 years and loved it. I didn't own a car. I took the train downtown every day to work.
Sure.
So,
That's great.
but what you're talking about are all the things that you mentioned, and that is a place, and
Yep.
you're talking about public transportation and that community, and we don't have that. You're right, we don't have that. So how can you
And
encourage?
once those young people go to those communities, they'll never leave. My two sons, the one would never leave San Francisco. He's bought a multi-million-dollar house in San Francisco. The other one in Ann Arbor's bought his own house and will never leave. He seeks his jobs based on proximity to Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a
My
hard-
daughter won't
hard
go back
place.
either. She's in San Francisco, she loves it, Bay Area.
Never leave.
None of ours are coming back. They're gone.
They're gone.
Right.
So we die or we evolve. I mean, not to be as crass as that, but we need to start evolving and start providing these so we can start attracting some of the population back.
The thing that amazes me is companies are as good as their staff. And we have such an influx of young people coming into our area, it's unreal. How do we grow? What's population do we grow to
right now?
during the day?
Oh, geez,
30,000 or something.
125, 130,000?
Sure. All these people, why aren't they here? Why can't we keep them here? Because the companies are here, obviously.
I would argue it's because we don't have these four.
The housing option.
Absolutely.
Yep.
The thing that kills me is they're going also east. What does Macomb County have?
They're going to be
Cheaper
A lot
housing.
go to Macomb. Pardon?
It's more
Cheaper
affordable.
housing.
More
It's
affordable,
affordable.
more affordable, smaller houses,
Lower taxes.
lower taxes, yeah. That's a big draw.
Well, there's some smaller units available
Yeah.
too. There's
Yeah, it's more affordable.
Yeah.
Either that or the boats.
Just one other point that I
I don't think it's that.
I always hear this story that, or the fact that we have such vacant office space, it's up to like 30%. And I just can't believe that some of those buildings couldn't be made into small apartment units.
Or big apartments, they're pretty
Or
big
even
buildings.
small or large, yeah, right.
We've had conversations, and there's the potential that could happen in the future.
Good.
We were close with the building that recently sold on Big Beaver.
Okay.
It went to auction, and
Okay.
if one of the parties had purchased it, he said he was gonna convert it into apartments or
Yeah.
condos. But he didn't get it.
Well, I'm glad people at least started to look at it anyway, because I think that's a big potential.
So what do we do? I talked about provide for aging in places in the report. I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm really gonna focus on strategy 2 and 3. We need to continue to make Troy, we need to make Big Beaver, we need to make Big Beaver Troy's place. That's really our opportunity area. We need to promote arts and culture, entertainment, and places to assemble, as well as housing diversity along Big Beaver. We don't have a downtown, but this is our best opportunity to create that sense of place. Whether it's, Tommy raised a good point, whether it's along the 5-mile stretch, I doubt it, but it needs to be pockets and nodes in important areas along the corridor.
See, the Kresge project, if that would have gone, that was our downtown, that was our culture, that was the park, the recreation, the winter, all these activities that we were talking about, winter or summer,
Yep.
that would have been it.
At least the nucleus for it, anyway, right?
Pardon me?
At least the nucleus for downtown.
Oh, absolutely.
And in our strategy 3, we need to let Maple Road just continue to evolve, and I think part of that is we just need to kind of stay out of the way. We're starting to see some really positive changes there. We have 250 units coming in potentially pretty soon on Maple Road. So just let it evolve, let it keep growing, and let it provide the entrepreneurship opportunities and the housing diversity options as well. 4 is schools, 5 is access to park. I missed a number there, but strategy 6 should be multimodal transportation options. That's a big challenge. So I think our focus should not be necessarily on the automobile transportation options, but more the pedestrian and biking opportunities that we can try to encourage and link developments up and focus on those strategies as well. Anything you want to add, Brent, to those?
See, I totally agree with what you're saying, but I think that we've got those units coming in on Maple, right? How many?
Well, we've seen a couple, 240 to 50.
240,
240, 250. If the city were having any funds that we could actually assist that and develop that area with the lighting and with the park benches and some of the amenities, that would be the spark for Maple Road. And then developments could continue off of that. I mean, the theater is there.
Right.
We really got some positive things happening.
Well, I've been thinking about, those, we were kind of hard on that potential site plan where they had the 7 buildings, because we thought they weren't.
You weren't hard enough.
I rethunked my position on that one, and I think we've got to get something like that going right away. At least then it will start to spin off other developments that are similar.
I think they'll be back soon.
Oh, good, I'm glad to hear that. Yes, Phil?
I saw a presentation in Westland where this city hall was relocated to a development where they, it was a Sam's Club or some type of commercial building where they actually tore down the city hall. They developed a vacant Sam's Club, or there was actually a boulevard where they closed one lane of the boulevard off and they limited the traffic. And it was really innovative. They really changed the use of the property. They made it more pedestrian friendly. They had a farmer's market that they developed where the old city hall was. They really used the vet land very uniquely and developed it wisely to bring people back to that area. And they had a problem whether the city hall in Westland was old and dilapidated, it was flooding when it rained, and then they were able to renovate an old warehouse building into a city hall.
Yeah.
So, that would be a stretch to close one of the boulevards of Big Beaver down. But it's interesting because I think we've all been to Denver, where they have the pedestrian walkways up and down for blocks and blocks and blocks up Denver. You go to Edinburgh, Scotland, they have the same thing there where they have pedestrian ways, where they have bar after bar after bar, restaurant after restaurant, and they bring people in. I don't know if that would be possible, you know, with the issues that we have with traffic up and down Big Beaver, but something like that has to happen, I think, you know, if you want to bring people and have a downtown in Troy.
I would just love to just see any kind of a pilot type of demonstration pilot and incentivize, you know, I don't, personally, I don't have a big problem with providing some city incentives for that.
Well, you know, when Brent and I met with the developer for Maple Road, we met with him probably 4 times before he came in the planning commission. It's a 9-acre site.
Huge.
I think it's the biggest developable site on Maple Road, and we felt there was an opportunity to do what you're talking about, to mix some uses together, to create some more mixed-use development, to bring a road almost in there to create kind of a streetscape. And we got some pushback from him, because that's not what he does, and so it's a good project, but I think we need to keep pushing those opportunities as they come along.
Yes, Karen?
Dare I ask, what about the whole civic center area? You know, when
You should dare that.
you know, when we were looking at the Amber apartment building, you know, this was supposed to be the way cool thing to do because we had this whole civic center area that, you know, we were gonna do walkability and this apartment building is gonna attract all of these young people and all of this stuff here that you talk about. But as I drive through the civic center area, I see this vacant kind of parking lot and there's a fenced kind of skateboarding park around it and I see some debris and some cars that are parked there and the sidewalk doesn't even run all the way down. I'm like, really? I mean, I struggle with that. I struggle with the fact that the city has talked about this civic center area for years and years and years, and it still is dumpy.
Still don't have any kind of a water feature.
We
No
have
water
nothing. There's
feature.
no sidewalks, there's no park benches, there's no cool lights, there's no cafes, there's no place to buy a cup of coffee. I mean, so what it is that you're trying to attract with this apartment building doesn't exist. So unless you do something about it, then you're going to have this apartment building that matches nothing in the surrounding area. It sits like a behemoth all by itself, and we all go, oh my God, look at that building, as we drive through the civic center area. So I don't, frankly, kind of care what happens on Big Beaver or Maple until we kind of clean up our own backyard.
Mr. Grant?
And it does have a water feature, by the way.
Well,
Barely.
They could really make it really a great
Yes.
place if they wanted to, if they could.
It's a fish passage.
With a little more creativity, right?
It's a fish passage now.
Yeah.
Tom, Craig?
Give you a little bit of history on the Civic Center. There were 2 major studies done by outside firms for completely redoing our Civic Center. And nothing happened after that. They were wonderful studies. They're sitting on some shelf someplace. Robin Beltramini, back, I may quote the year wrong, it was in the early 2000s, had one person from various committees, and I happened to be one of them from the Parks and Rec, I was on Parks and Rec board at the time, design an entire new civic center, which we did. And the council adopted that, but nothing happened. It's a wonderful site. There was no budget. We had fountains, we had a giant plaza, we had
I saw
vendors.
those designs.
Yeah.
I saw those designs, and I'm still waiting.
Well, it's the
I'm still
vote
waiting.
of city council to say, we're gonna budget how many million every year until this is completed. And the plans, we've got 3 plans that are laid out for that property. It's just a matter of money.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, Mr. Krant, the most recent rendition that you're talking about, that was the Civic Center. I forget-
Priority Task Force.
Priority Task Force.
Right.
That did not contemplate mixed-use development and density
did
and
not.
resident, these types of things that you referred to.
Or even retail?
It was really the kind of, it treated it kind of like the sacred cow, like it's gonna
Supposed
remain
retail
kind
with
of
the,
park-like, and it really didn't contemplate.
There was not mixed use, but what
Right.
it was community gathering things. We had an amphitheater set up, we had a skate park, not that little thing that.
Fenced-in
No,
area
no,
with
well,
some
that was-
ramps on it?
No, actually, that was budgeted for about 4 times, but Mr. Howrelack said, no way, we're gonna have this, the people that use it pay for it, and that's what we got. It was the city, he said, no way is the city gonna pay for this, so that's why we have what we have.
Well, it seems to me if we want a node, how about we do one there?
Well, it's interesting you bring up. I have 2 communities right now that I work for, where they did a public-private partnership where they actually they put City Hall in a private development. Essentially, they gave the land to a developer and said, "You build whatever you want to build, but you got to build City Hall for us as part of it." And they kind of got what they want.
I've stated that for many years now. If we were to sell this project, this building right here, we could afford to build a brand-new building down on Maple Road. We could have a new city hall, a new everything as to what the value of this property would be off I-75. Any developer would really pay their, whatever they could. This is prime property. We have no business being here.
Really old.
Pardon me?
But the building itself is really old and kind of non-functional too.
Absolutely.
Well,
Zerlag wanted to move everybody into the Civic Center because it's really non-occupied. You can be in the Civic Center.
To look at expanding maybe a little bit on what Mr. Stratus said, I look at this area as being really desirable, and would it be an option to maybe explore sending out like an RFP for a developer? Everybody's talking about, well, what could we do to incentivize people? Well, my experience is a builder will build whatever a lender will finance. So the big key to that is, well, they don't want to spend the money to tackle that project. And so we have land that's currently being abused or not used at the very least. And if that's the case, why don't we offer that perhaps on a long-term, you do a 100-year lease, where you encourage development of the type that we're talking about, and you can do multi-story, you can do mixed use, you can have retail, and you've incentivized a developer to come do that by offering incredibly favorable terms for a good location. And that could be the beginning of that shift.
As a part of a competition, and let them compete as to what they're going to build for us.
Just a
That
thought.
could be like a city hall,
Right.
like, not a city hall, but I meant like a point of destination like we were talking about where the Kresge building was. Say, that's what we like, but we'll give you the land.
But, these guys have all the tools, they know what they want, you come with some great data, but the question has been, well, what can we do? And everybody's sitting there saying, well, what can we do? That's something we certainly, I would hope, could look at as an option.
What you're trying to tell us, Ben, is that you want us to think out of the box.
Yes, I will not touch the sun at City Hall right now. Probably.
No, I switched gears here.
Yes.
We went off on a little bit of a
Yeah,
tangent.
we did go off a little bit.
Yeah, but it's all good conversation though.
Yeah, that's great, yeah. No, yeah, the point is, things are changing, we need to evolve with these changes.
And don't misunderstand, I didn't mean sell City Hall.
Yeah.
What I meant is,
I did.
you're looking at some dirt over there right now that's not being used, and it's an asset the city could leverage to be able to get exactly what we want.
Is the community center actually large enough to house all the city
yes.
functions?
Staff is way, your staff is way down.
What?
The staff is down for the city. They reduce their staff significantly.
I know that, but there's a huge lot of programs and conference rooms.
Upstairs, it's vacant. There's a lot of area that is not utilized, at least according to Zerlag when he made his study when he was here.
There was a time where there was dialogue, like Mr. Stroud said, about shifting everyone over there.
And even if it weren't large enough, there's certainly not a lot of land over there to build an addition for city
You
office.
could rent some of that vacant office space. What an idea.
All right, lastly, and this is really quick, is we just need to continue to assess city services based on changing demographics, because what,
Do you mean assess or access? I'm sorry, I'm an editor. So- Is
I'm
it
sorry,
access?
assess,
Ah, yes,
yeah.
okay.
Because obviously the changing of the population will change, will affect policymaking and planning. So the master plan is what we should be using this for. So let's continue to use the master plan to identify and plan for community needs. And also, we need to continue to work with social service organizations and community organizations to kind of help us, tell us what their populations need too. So that's all I got now. I think, as I said, this will evolve. So you will see changes to this based on when we go out to the population. And any input you can want to give us for this too. This will keep moving. This will probably be the most changing section of the master plan until we get to completion. So.
You know, our main tools as a planning commission are the master plan and ordinances. So why don't we reorganize the district, which is now called the Big Beaver District, so that so parts of that are only for housing, parts of that are only for mixed use. Why do we have it so that it's just so much office and maybe restaurants on the front? Why don't we just totally, now, case in point, when that post office, the old post office, I guess it was like a hub on Big Beaver. It's on the south side of the street. Right now it's occupied by a manufacturing company.
At Bellingham and.
Yeah, Bellingham and Big Beaver. That's a huge, huge warehouse. That could have been, if we had zoned it for residential or multi-story residential back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, before that building was sold to another manufacturing company. Why don't we zone it so that we create a downtown instead of just leave it like it is?
If not a downtown, it may be a node, period.
Right. Exactly that. Little nodes.
Or maybe even, is it too late to consider for the master plan update, nodes for the Big Beaver?
For Big Beaver's the next one to come. We still have to bring Big Beaver, and based on what I'm hearing tonight, we'll definitely look into that.
Consider that.
Yeah, definitely.
See, what I saw when they did the Big Beaver corridor was actually the parallel parking was not all the way down.
Right.
No.
It had little jogs,
Like
and that's where I'm
the slip
saying that
jogs.
we could have really little nodes like that and have them have their own character.
Yeah.
They should all have their own identity.
Yeah.
And just like we're trying to do with all the nodes at the intersection, hopefully those should be having their own identity.
Right.
But they need, what we were talking about, they need a pilot. They need to take one of these nodes and actually supplement it by the city to put in the amenities that would complement the form-based code or whatever, and then you've really got something.
You're right.
And hopefully it'll pyramid.
You need that city input for those amenities. I agree.
Yeah, you've gotta have, we've gotta
That's the
put the
to
spark
get
in
everybody
there.
going.
You've gotta get the money.
Gotta have
Then I
some-
don't know what you're doing. You should go out there and get the money.
Be a fundraiser.
I agree, I think the city's gotta have some skin in the game, otherwise, those kind of things are not gonna come forward.
And that comes right back to council.
Yes, it does.
Then you come in with the dreams, now you gotta come in with the money.
man.
One last thought about the development of Big Beaver that I have. That last project that Jonah built, basically on the corner of Alpine and Big Beaver, that could have been, the original Monarch had housing mixed in with that, with the retail. Why didn't the city say all planned unit developments or all new retail on Big Beaver will now have housing as part of the plan, period? And if there's no housing, there's no project.
Well, we talked about this publicly with the developer, and the developer, if you recall, was steadfast.
Oh, absolutely he
Saying-
was, because it was zoned that way, but if it was zoned differently for housing and
It required
retail.
housing.
He said, sorry to
Then
interrupt.
he didn't, then he wouldn't have bought the property,
He
then
said,
somebody else would have bought the
I
property.
built one on Woodward and Long Lake.
I remember
I
that.
can't fill it, I can't do office, no one's gonna wanna live here,
That's because he had office above it.
so I'm not gonna do something that's gonna be unsuccessful, I'll walk.
Yeah.
That's what we heard.
I remember
Numerous
that
times.
conversation, I remember that meeting,
You know,
that you.
You raise, Mr. Grant, you raise a really good point. It's important to remember that when the master plan was adopted and the zoning ordinance was written, we were probably at the worst, almost the worst of the worst. If we would have required mixed-use development, I'm not sure you would have seen anything built on Big Beaver yet, to be honest with you. Things have changed, though. The economy obviously is picking up, so maybe something that we need to look at. But I don't think you, at least, I shouldn't, you might have gotten something, but you wouldn't have gotten the amount we've achieved so far.
My point is, we don't have to do the whole
Right.
9
No, I get
yards,
it.
specific areas.
But
You know, have notes.
I think the point I'm saying is, I recognize you're saying we're in a different economic time than we were when we did that, so I think it's another time to relook at that issue, so.
So how do we rattle city council and?
Don't look at us for that.
I think you just,
I think you're on tape, Ms. Cruz.
That's their job, both those guys.
I think what really was interesting in our conversations, we identified two properties, the City Hall property and the Kresge property, that have great potential. Now we have to find an innovative way to develop and to provide for incentives for developers to manage those properties in a way that it could be profitable and be an asset to our community. And I think, those would be fantastic nodes.
But the old Kmart headquarters is actually owned by Forbes.
Well, I know, and provide an incentive for him to develop that as a mixed-use development. And, I've seen them in other parts of the country, they're very successful. Well, the downturn slowed them down, but I think now is a real opportune time to take advantage of that. And I don't know if these examples of, like you said, maybe competition or economic development incentives in order to.
It's done. They're very successful with competitions like that.
Yeah.
Buzzword is public-private partnerships, but
That's it.
usually the public
I agree.
doesn't
It's
put a
time.
lot of money in.
It's time.
Okay, are we?
That was a brownfield site, I think, at one time. I remember the Kresge building was a brownfield site, and it was potentially money from the state or to demolish it and to develop the property. And I fell along the wayside. I don't know, there was some legislation needed to make it happen, but they were talking about that at that time.
Brent, you remember what happened at the Kresge site? When the developer came in and bought that site?
The Kmart headquarters site, right?
Yep,
The cartoon, you called it.
that was a cartoon, remember?
Cartoon, yeah.
Grand Soccer.
Because it was residential, right. Came in, told us we're crazy.
And probably at that time we were.
He was,
Because of the economy. The economy was so bad at that time.
yeah.
Just
But
like
he was-
Biltmore Park on Telegraph. Redical was buying it, now they're gonna redevelop it. It just, the timing has changed.
Yep.
Okay.
Some good dialogue tonight.
We got kind of wound up.
No,
No,
this is
it's-
good, this is
it's-
what we need.
This is good. Good creative thinking. I mean, good ideas. This is great. This has been a good meeting.
Okay, we have one other item, 5A, the resolution for the meetings for this year.
Yeah, we always, before the end of the calendar year, we look at meeting dates for the next year. What I had this is Kathy's idea, which is a really good idea, to put potential conflicts in this, on the sheet here. And I say conflicts, it's not a capital C, it's like a small c, conflicts. Where they really become conflicts is if a holiday is the week before the meeting, because then we have less time to prepare agenda items. In this case, the holiday falls just before the meeting date in most cases, so it's really not that big of a conflict. So unless the planning commission feels otherwise, it looks like we could go with all 24 days on the schedule for 2015.
Why can't you do it this way? And if a holiday's coming up and nothing is really hot in the front burner, just
It's canceled.
We could,
don't even have a meeting,
Right.
don't schedule it.
we certainly could.
Is there a full agenda for the next meeting before Thanksgiving?
Our plan was to bring some language regarding extraction before you, and we may have a site plan.
We'll have a meeting for a site plan. I would certainly vote for that. Okay. So we have a proposed agenda or proposed resolution here. What we're essentially saying is this
me make the resolution? I'll move the resolution as printed.
Second. Mr. Hudson?
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Mr. Zanzi?
Yes.
Mr. Shapke?
Yes.
Mr. Stratt?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Gottlieb?
Yes.
Next is public comments for items on the current agenda. Anyone who wants to comment on that? Seeing no one. We'll move on to planning commission comments. Begin with Mr. Clinton.
I guess I was just intrigued because I thought there are 3 plans out there for the Civic Center that have lain dormant, and I agree with Karen. If that could be developed, I mean, that'd be a great magnet. It's just a showpiece. And I would suggest that, I don't know, we encourage council to do something, but, you know, maybe even a 4th plan. I think you can get some private industry in there with some plans, coffee shop, or maybe an apartment building, something of that nature. Why limit ourselves to the existing 3 plans? Maybe they should be updated.
I agree.
Well, I know council told me that it was gonna attract all of these young, hip people that were looking for these types of things, but they're absent.
Well, in all fairness, there are public amenities that, you know, if people want to be close to, you know, the city offices and the library and
Tennis courts.
community center, that type of thing. Those are certainly attractive to the people. But I agree with you that we could
Absolutely.
certainly expand that.
Got to.
The real problem, I'm not gonna say anything about that.
You're on tape.
I'm done.
Just to kind of echo the support for all the ideas that came out, it was a good conversation, and one of the things that was brought up is the city needs to have some skin in the game, I think was the phrase. And with respect to that, you could certainly do that without having to lay out public funds by offering an existing asset, as I mentioned earlier, and you just define what you want built, and like you said, have people bid or compete for access to that. So we're, in effect, providing the things that everybody's asked for: lighting, park benches, features that we request, but it's not an outlay of public funds, and it's utilizing an existing asset that's underutilized. So we don't have to spend any money to accomplish that. So just a thought.
As a design competition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've said enough.
Karen?
No, thank you.
Gordon?
No, I think we have to be cautious when the city puts skin in the game. When, you know, I remember back when our city manager was talking about the large deficits we were going to be facing, and we're gonna have to bring a receiver. And there's a lot of residents of Troy that are gonna be very resistant against that until some of the stuff is cleared up and some of these facts and figures are put on the table so that the taxpayers can feel a little bit more at ease if the city decided to go with this you know, assist in nodes and areas like that. But basically, nodes are a good idea.
Bill?
I think we had a great conversation today, and I've been really toying with the idea of how to provide incentives for developers to you know, to do great developments and yet provide stormwater management, have initiatives to really do things smartly and develop property very conscientiously, and I think there could be a balance. It's just a matter of us finding a balance in order to do that, and how to provide them with incentive.
Mr. Motzky?
I can talk about
Comments, thanks. And I have a comment.
So to piggyback on what Phil just said, I'm gonna put some words in Phil's mouth here.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation a couple weeks ago, very, very good conversation. And he had the idea where maybe we expand the sustainable development, the STP, Sustainable Development Project provisions in the ordinance to allow more flexibility and more incentives get away maybe from variances, but doing it through SDP, we get more sustainable development. So it's a win-win. The developer gets more intensity or more whatever, and the trade-off is we get higher quality stormwater and other sustainable elements on the site. So that's something we can look at is expanding that range. Instead of being very limited, we can broaden it. And I think that's a really good idea.
Can I interject?
Yes.
Is there a way that we can actually make the calculations actually explained as a part of the stormwater, the retention pond being reduced if we provide the bioswales?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Can we force, it doesn't occur now, they don't.
There are ways of calculating
Can that
the
be an
benefits
incentive?
of, yeah, absolutely.
I was looking at the incentive, did you understand what I said?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to engineering about that? Maybe that'll be a,
I can talk to him, sure.
oh, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Ben?
Okay.
Kathy?
No, thank you.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Bill?